3, 2.
Hello everyone and welcome to our Facebook live chat. My name is Laura Chacon-Garbado. I'm your Director of Training and Education here at HERBALIFE. And you know, today we're going to talk about how companies, health organizations, and nutrition and fitness professionals release their top trends list, and consumers like you and I have to sift through a lot of information about what's hot in wellness. But today we're here to cut through all of that clutter and to break down some of the most important trends in nutrition and fitness, and most importantly, what those trends mean to all of you. So, as we chat, feel free to leave your comments, leave your questions, because we are going to be taking questions from all of you at the end. But before we do that, I would like to introduce our amazing panel who is here and who is going to be talking to all of you and who is going to be sharing all their information, all their expertise. And we have here Dr. John Ogunobi, who is our Chief Officer of Health and Nutrition at HERBALIFE. We have Susan Bowerman, who is our registered dietitian. We have Dr. David Heber, who is in charge of, he's our chairman of the Scientific and Medical Advisory Board. And we have, last but not least, the amazing Samantha Clayton, who is a former professional sprinter and vice president of sports and performance and fitness here at HERBALIFE. So we welcome all of you. And here's the question for all of our panel. So nutrition professionals have been talking about the benefits of plant-based proteins for years. And you all know that because you're all experts. But in 2018, it really seems that consumer demand is really skyrocketing. So why are people gravitating towards plant foods now?
You want?
I'll take a stab at it.
Go ahead.
I think there's a number of reasons. I think certainly one of the reasons is I think people are concerned about the environment, and there's a major environmental impact when we're consuming a lot of animal products. So I think that's one thing. There's many other benefits, obviously.
Well, you know, there's about 150,000 to 200,000 edible plant species on Earth, and we only eat about 150 to 200 of them. And here in America, people eat only 3 servings a day: iceberg lettuce, French fries, and ketchup. So at both ends of the age spectrum, millennials are becoming more vegetarian or vegan, more plant products. Older people are worried about brain health and their vision. And there are a lot of benefits in fruits and vegetables for the eyes, the brain, the joints, etc. So people are discovering the health benefits of protein from plants.
I think it's true that the science of nutrition is also beginning to expose every day more and more benefits to plant-based, plant-preferenced food and meals. But there's also, I think, trending in the marketplace a sense that anything that relates to plants is healthier than others. And that isn't always true, but it is a trend.
That's true. The protein trend is here to stay, but you know, soy protein dominates the field for good reason. It has the right mixture of amino acids in it that your body needs. Now, when you switch to one of these new trending things like pea or quinoa or hemp or these various types of protein you may hear of, you are actually moving away. Even some of the nut proteins like almond that are becoming popular in almond milk, they may not have the right mix of amino acids. There are 21 of them, and you need to have all of the right ones. So when you get to these other plant proteins, you need to combine them carefully to get the high quality protein your body needs.
And I think that demand comes from people having access to more education than ever before. You know, you look online, everyone can see, you can read more. I think the consumers are becoming more educated. And I think from that education, people are able to make more informed decisions. And so I think a lot of that demand definitely comes from access to information.
Yeah.
Absolutely, absolutely. So Susan, we have a question for you. So as a registered dietitian, can you share a few other trends that are on the dietitian's radar for 2018?
Sure, yeah, I'd be happy to. You know, I went to the annual Dietetic Association meeting, which I do every fall, and it's a great place to look for new trends because they have a huge expo hall and there's all kinds of new products. So I would say the one thing that really jumped out at me this year is that this is definitely the year of digestive health and probiotics, and there were just probiotics everywhere. And this wasn't just probiotic supplements, but just a lot of foods that probiotics have been added to, and things, you know, aside from the usual yogurts and so forth, but various drinks and snack foods. So giving people many, many more opportunities to get more probiotics in the diet. So that was the first one. And I think the other one, interestingly, ties to your first question. There are a lot of there's a big market for alternatives to cow's milk, and most of us know about soy milk, almond milk, as you mentioned. But we're seeing a lot more products that are made from alternative proteins. So there is a pea milk out there, for example, that's a fairly high protein milk. There's more products that are being made with nuts that also have a higher protein profile, which is interesting because a lot of the other milk substitutes that we've had in the past have not had much protein. So that was a very interesting trend. The third one is I think the coconut oil craze is kind of diminishing, and what I was seeing more of were some newer sources of fats to use in the diet. Avocado oil, which has been around for a long time, but suddenly it's very trendy, probably because of avocado toast, and also oils that are coming from nuts like walnut, tree nuts, for example, which are very healthy. And I think the last thing that I saw that was kind of interesting is, you know, we've seen a lot of foods in the past, particularly around snack foods, that kind of give us these flavor bombs where we've got, you know, multiple flavors in one food. But we're seeing a little bit more streamlined and more interesting flavors that are coming in. So I think you're going to see more international flavors in foods in the U.S. You know, we're used to sort of our Mexican and our pizza, and that's about it. But I think we're going to get introduced to more interesting flavor profiles from different parts of the world.
You know, just going back to the probiotic
Yeah.
trend, I think a lot of that, David, might be driven by the flurry of science from the microbiome
Absolutely.
that's kind of trended last year and the year before. A lot of conversations about the interactions between the healthy bacteria that live in your gut and many different systems of health within the body.
It actually changed our whole vision of ourselves as humans. We are now part of the environment that surrounds us. So not only our intestines, but our skin, our bodies are covered with trillions of bacteria, most of which are helpful. And then our habits reflect onto the bacteria. So if you eat an unhealthy diet, your bacteria think you know what you're doing and they get unhealthy. When you get back on a healthy diet, you change your bacteria. And the probiotics and the prebiotics are what feed the bacteria. Probiotics are healthy bacteria you kind of launch into the intestinal tract. And they work together. And so now we're finding out that many fruits and vegetables and plant products are actually prebiotic. So this is it's just changed everything in medicine.
And I think something you said, Dr. A, and it ties to what Samantha just said about education, is, you know, we've been talking about probiotics and the microbiome for a few years, but I think now the information is finally getting to the point where it's been distilled down, it's becoming a little bit more accessible to people. They're starting to understand it, you know, a lot more than they did before, and recognizing how important it is.
Yeah.
Great, great. Well, this question is directly for Dr. Heber. So, Dr. Heber, a majority of consumers continue to focus on weight loss, as you know, and weight management, but we've also seen a great increased interest in health heart, in healthy aging, because we're all getting older, and having more energy.
Well,
so how will this impact the wellness space in 2018?
Well, I think you put your hands on a very important area, and that is we're beyond the era of just weight loss. I like to call it weight management, but it's more about body composition than it is about your body weight. You know, muscle weighs more than fat per unit volume. So I just saw some pictures I shared with Dr. Aguinobi that a woman who lost weight from 145 pounds down to 122, then started working out, and her muscle looks great and her body looks great, but her weight's back up to 144 pounds. So weight is not the whole story anymore. It's all about lean body mass, which we've been teaching here at HERBALIFE for the last 14 years, matching the protein in your diet to the protein in your body and doing the kind of exercise Samantha teaches everyone to do to really get into that fitness space together with protein. So I think that's really the future of where we're going, both for the millennials who like to look great and for us older folks, baby boomers, that are trying to stay healthy and fit and not fall over while we walk around.
That's true. That's true. That's true. Dr. A, what opportunities do you see for innovation with these nutrition trends, and how is this going to affect consumers?
You know, it actually ties together everything that's been said today. The consumer now has more information, more access to kind of understandable science, translated science, and they're beginning to make decisions at an individual level. They spend the day, they research, they decide, you know, this is what I need, and they have a sense of what's going to work. I think one of the innovations that's beginning to gather speed is this notion of personalization. The ability to kind of take the science that's out there, whether it's in the microbiome or probiotics or protein or exercise or coaching, and apply it uniquely to each individual. They're doing their research and they know what they need. Those of us that are trying to help, we now need to do our research and make sure that what we give one person isn't exactly the same as what we give another, because they're individuals and the response to our intervention is always going to be slightly different. Personalization is the big innovation coming.
Well, we totally agree. So, Sam, this question is for you because we all want to look like you when we grow up.
Like me, maybe?
Yeah, maybe. So, getting in shape, staying fit, keeping up with, you know, the trends that are out there. Where do you see the health and wellness space in 2018? What does that mean for the future of our consumers and obviously our company too?
The perfect question. And, you know, at the start of the year, I love that people want to know what's new this year. And, you know, what I'd love to share with our audience is, you know, fitness is very cyclical. So sometimes things seem trendy and then sometimes not so trendy. You know, so I look at something like running, and I call running the little black dress of fitness. No matter whether you're in the 70s, 80s, or 90s, running is always going to be in fashion. Maybe you're walking, you're jogging, or you're running, but that's the little black dress. But all the things that come around that, think about high intensity interval training is still going to be trending this year. Maybe people are going to be innovative with the different timings that they use. But I kind of see 2018 as being a year where fitness is to fit the individual. So if somebody only has 10 minutes, let them maximize that 10 minutes with cross training of their choice, body weight exercises. I think this year will be the year where you'll see people really mixing and matching. So maybe they'll be doing a little bit of weight training to build muscle, followed by a little bit of yoga to stretch out their muscle. So I think we'll see a lot of blended styles in 2018. Of course, I was just at one of the fitness expos, and you get to see lots of, you know, new pieces of equipment and lots of new fitness styles. But I think fitness this year for the general consumer is going to be fun. It's going to be about what you want for your body. If you're, you know, want to improve your cardio, if you want to build muscle, I think people now are going to start to mix and match and do what suits them. That's what I really see, to be honest, for 2018. And I'll just finish by saying, you know, when we talk about the education and people having access to education, I think people are starting to see fitness as more than just looking good. You know, we're understanding fitness is for my health, it's for my heart, it's for my bones, it's for my skin. And so there's a movement called exercise is medicine, and that's trending all over the world. And that's just putting out the message that, you know, exercise is for more than just looking good. Exercise is for healthy aging. Exercise is for making you feel good and improve your confidence. So I think that's a movement that you'll start to see in the general media space that will really complement this whole personalized approach.
And I think, you know, it's interesting listening to you because, you know, I was just thinking as you were talking and listening to Dr. Hebert talking about weight management is that, you know, in the past, there was always sort of, I used to call it the diet du jour, right? So it was, we went through the, long ago, David and I remember very well, you know, the Pritikin program, which was very low fat and actually not very much protein. Then we went through the whole Atkins phase. And we've had these sort of eras where we've had, you know, a diet where kind of everybody attached themselves to it and they were trying to follow it. And we really don't see that much of that anymore. And I think what we're finding is that just as what Sam was explaining with the fitness is that, you know, what we've always taught here is really trying to give people good, solid nutrition principles.
Balance.
And balance.
Yep.
But also within that, trying to be able to figure out really what works for you. So it's the combination of how do I take all of what I'm learning about nutrition and how to eat healthy and how to exercise and do all the things I'm supposed to do, but how can I almost create something that's uniquely mine, because that's really what most people want. And that's the thing that really is going to ensure their long-term success. You know, we're not about, you know, having people get it off as quickly as possible. This is really about lifestyle, and it's long-term.
I think for exercise especially, people are getting into personalized music for exercise, personalized clothing, the personalized hydration that they use. So it's a lot of the environment around exercise, and the high-intensity interval training has been such an innovation because what it's done is to squeeze down the time it takes. We used to think that when you were moving weights, you weren't burning any energy. Well, the fact of the matter is, if you wait and measure the energy burned after you finish weights, it's just as much as standing on a treadmill. So we don't have people anymore walking on on a treadmill for 30 minutes watching the news and being bored to death or reading a book. We now have people actively involved. So they'll go from a resistance exercise to an aerobic exercise to another resistance, and in 45 minutes they're sweating, they feel great, and they've had a great experience with some fine music, and it really becomes addictive. I call exercise the only healthy addiction.
And we know you're more addicted than most.
I'm a junkie. I'm a junkie.
Every day in the gym.
He comes into my office and shows me his new moves, push-ups, planks, you name it. He's the poster child for exercise.
But it is also, I think, one of the reasons why coaching has become so important, right? Because now people realize they have to take a little bit of exercise, a little bit of great nutrition, perhaps supplement with protein or other, and they have to make the right kind of combination. So sometimes it helps to have a professional or at least an expert on your side who can offer you advice, who can kind of help you craft a personalized plan for you.
Yeah, the confidence of the coach and the trust of the consumer kind of go together, so that by having the educated coach and the educated consumer meet each other, because there's so much wrong information out there. As Susan alluded to, everybody who eats is an expert in nutrition, you know. They write these books now. I mean, every actor, every actress has got a diet book out there now with another crazy notion in it. And the idea is to really get an authoritative, confidence, science-based approach that people can do with good principles of behavior to coach people to do the right thing.
That's right. That's right. That's right.
Getting those results with your community, whoever that community is, and that's what's going to keep you on track. Right.
Absolutely, absolutely. Dr. A, people worldwide are living longer, as you know, and reaching older ages more than ever before. You know, we all know the trends for aging, which means people are trying to stay fit and healthy for as long as possible. Yeah. So how is this going to impact end consumers and the health and wellness landscape in 2018 and, of course, and beyond, right? It's not just about 2018. And what should we be looking out for and evaluating?
Yeah, I think it's something we should probably all comment on, because it's one of those areas that really impacts all of the areas that these experts represent. Once again, it's about balance. Science is beginning to show that a balanced approach to healthy living provides for healthy aging over time. There's no magic bullets. There's no quick shortcut to it. It's about living a life where you're eating healthy every single day, where you're exercising a little bit every day, where you're taking the best science that's available and personalizing it to your unique needs. You know, there's lots of studies coming out now around Alzheimer's disease, around dementia, around cognitive states that show if you live a balanced life. By the way, there's also science that shows if that balanced lifestyle includes a supportive community and a loving caregiver, you're far more likely to have a healthy, productive, later life. Aging is kind of where do you draw the line? But because healthy aging is about healthy living.
Absolutely is. And I think, you know, it's interesting because I think in the past, people always had the perception that, and you probably had this with patients too, where they just, oh, you know, I've been doing this for so long, you know, why should I change now? And I think it's really important for people to understand that it's absolutely never too late, no matter how bad your eating habits are, no matter how sedentary you may be, you know, there is benefit to making changes at any point in your life. And that, you know, we know that people can build muscle even into fairly advanced ages, and we know that people can certainly get the benefits of improving their diet. So it's a process.
There's a school of thought that's beginning to evolve that says the older you get, the more you should exercise,
yes,
and the better you should eat.
And you need more protein as you get older.
And the more
for example.
protein you should. So it's kind of
as you age, your muscle goes down every decade, and it turns out that one of the outcomes of that is the number of calories you burn per day goes down. So therefore, just eating the same amount of food you always ate, suddenly you're gaining weight. And I used to see women in their 40s come in for the first time because I don't get it, Dr. Heber, I'm eating the same number of calories and I'm gaining weight. Well, you lost muscle. Now, if you exercise, build that muscle up, for every 10 pounds you build, you burn 140 more calories at rest. So right there is a great way to integrate nutrition and exercise. And so, you know, age is a state of mind. So people, it's not a number. And there's chronological aging and biological aging. I remember working at the county hospital, I would see people in their 20s who looked like they were 50. And on the other side, you can see the 96-year-old Britisher who just has the record for the 500-meter run. And his big complaint is there are no women over 70 on the dating site.
So when it comes to fitness, you know, one of the jokes I say is be a beast today so that you're a beauty tomorrow. So, you know, working out may make you sweat a little, may make you smell a little bad in the moment, but you're doing those things in the gym so that you can age beautifully. That kind of, train hard today, eat well today, so that tomorrow is a little bit more beautiful. And if you do that in steps with all of your choices, healthy aging is a choice. It's a choice.
Absolutely. So I hope everybody's motivated. I know I am. Not that I didn't work out this morning, because I did, but I'm going to work out again this afternoon just to be on the safe side.
I mean, if you think of life as a race, and all of us as athletes, it's about accelerating through the finish line. Right. Don't slow down as you age, speed up.
Speed up. That's great. I like that. Dr. Heber, there's no shortage of ideas about how to keep minds working on all cylinders, no matter how old the individual or patient. So what trends are emerging to support cognitive health?
Okay, so the brain is the one organ you can't replace in your body. There was an old Twilight Zone episode where this guy was really super rich, and he preserved his brain in a glass jar, and he could only preserve a little camera as his eye, and he had a very bad relationship with his wife. So the last scene of the Twilight Zone, she walks in with a cigarette and blows smoke in his remaining eye, and the oscilloscope goes crazy. Well, none of us are going to age that way with an artificial brain, but the point is the brain is tied into the rest of your body. So keeping fit, keeping the right amount of blood flow in your brain and so forth is important. So there are 4 aspects of healthy brain function. There's your mood. So it turns out if you're depressed, you're kind of inflaming your brain. So you got to stay positive. Exercise is a great antidepressant. There's attention. So having healthy natural caffeine kind of keeps you alert during the day. There's memory, and there are now some very new approaches to memory, some that we're working on here at Herbalife. And the final one is cognition, the ability to think. And so there are a lot of people are doing crossword puzzles, learning a new language, keeping your mind active. To Dr. Agwanobi's point, race through the finish line. If you just slow down and don't have a lot of social contact, that also will be a problem. So when you have anxiety, when you have stress, it takes a toll on your mind. So living a balanced overall lifestyle is one of the best guarantees for brain health.
Well, and all those colorful fruits and vegetables that you and I have been talking about for years, decades, whatever.
Right, the green group. I forgot to mention lutein, which is really important, is found in spinach and kale and avocado and in some of our supplements. And what it does is it concentrates in the eye, and the eye is a window to the brain. So it goes into the optic nerve and into the brain, and 58% of the antioxidants in the brain are lutein, and there's some really good evidence on lutein and brain function. So that's another exciting frontier of science, not proven yet, so let's not get the lawyers nervous, but but it is definitely an area we're interested in.
And I want to jump in because I think a lot of the time when people think of brain health, all the young people on Facebook right now just stopped listening. Do you know what? Brain health relates to children all the way through. So when I think about exercise, kids now are on their iPads. I have 4 at home, so they're on their iPads and on their phones, and exercise is known for keeping your brain healthy and getting that blood flow going. And so thinking about brain health and cognitive health is not just for when you get older, it's for kids, it's for everybody in between. And
millennials is for everybody.
Yeah, and so when you're doing exercise and you're doing coordinated movement, where you're moving your arms one way and your legs another, call that dance, or aerobics, that's helping your brain stay healthy. And so, I think it's really important to kind of just share that, is when you hear the term healthy brain aging, it's not just for people who are already older, it's for everybody, including kids. So if you have kids, keep them active too, and get them eating those leafy green vegetables. Disguise them.
We actually have a TV screen at our gym, and dots come up at random, and you're supposed to touch the dots as they come up, and the kids get the best scores when they're young. But both young and old, after your exercise session, you actually hit more dots because the blood flow to the brain is greater and it improves. So not a lot, but a little bit, but it definitely improves.
Well, and as you mentioned too, how important it is for stress reduction, because we know that a lot of people, when they get stressed, they turn to food, and it's usually not. They don't turn to celery, right. They're going to turn to something that's got a lot of fat and a lot of calories. So that's one of the other things. It's just its general effect just on overall mood it's dramatic.
2 squats instead of eating cookies.
There
that's the rule.
Oh, really?
And stress piles up into a mood disorder with time. So you want to try to avoid stress. Exercise is a great stress reducer. Getting adequate sleep is very important for regenerating your mind in the morning. So all these things of lifestyle are extremely important.
That's true. And stress ages you too, so don't
And
be stressed.
and your skin.
And your skin, of course, so
Yes.
don't be stressed. So this is a question for all of our experts. Consumers want high-quality products with simple, recognizable ingredients. And there is a growing interest, not only here in the U.S., but worldwide, in what's known as the clean labeling. So can any of you explain what that means and where you see us heading?
Yeah, well, let me jump in right away. So I do think that as a company and as a community, it's critically important. It goes back to the point that I think Samantha made earlier, that the consumer has access to information now. I think it's critical. We are obligated. We have a responsibility to make sure that people have the ability to make the right decisions about their nutrition, about their health, and that means we have to demystify the words, the phrases, the science, the labels that we put on products so that people can understand what's in their food, what's in their nutrition. The trend towards clean labels isn't just about avoiding unnecessary things in your food. It's about giving people the ability to better understand what's important. The only other thing that I think is an important point on clean labels is we as a company and many around the world recognize that the consumer wants us to move down a path where it's not just about the macronutrients or perhaps even the micronutrients, but anything else, preservatives, coloring, sweeteners, anything else that's put in the product needs to be as healthy as it can possibly be. And I know we're all committed to doing that for our customers. I'm glad to see that in the larger society, larger community, larger market, actually many companies are beginning to realize, because they're being forced by the consumer, that this is a path we all have to go on.
Absolutely. I think there are some things that people need to know about labels. So for one thing, the order of the ingredients, the first thing in the label is the one that's there the most. And as you move down, they're there in smaller amounts. Sometimes people overreact to a very tiny ingredient that's off at the end without realizing that it's there in very, very tiny amounts. And also, you got to realize there's a lot of false information out on the internet about various ingredients, a lot of opinions. You often hear both sides of any issue. And for a lot of the science, you really need to understand the underlying nutrition. And that's our job, to educate the consumer.
And to simplify it.
Absolutely.
I'm a huge fan of the clean label movement. As a mom, I want to be an informed buyer when I'm in the supermarket and buying foods. And I think for the longest time, big industry was allowed to use what I call creative math to trick you into thinking that something's healthy. So maybe you're grabbing the cookies or the chips off the thing and you think it's healthy because they've been very creative with the serving size. And so I love this new thing where you're kind of helping the consumer help themselves. We understand there's an obesity epidemic. It's very real. We really need to teach people how to grocery shop, how to prepare their foods. And so I'm a huge advocate of that. I think it's great worldwide, especially here in the States.
And we're definitely moving away from, it used to be some of the foods you'd pick up, it looked like a drug label, there was just so much information on there. And so I think that people are, we're gravitating more towards, giving people more imagery, for example, just so that they can kind of, look at sort of an image on the label and understand exactly what they're getting without having to do a lot of reading. Just to, as you say, to cut through, it's very time consuming to spend a lot of time reading all of those labels. And I think the other thing, to your point, Dr. A, is also for people understanding that, ingredients are in our products for a reason.
Right.
And it's very important for people to understand that. And so that when we, people ask us about, well, why is this there, why is that there? We only put in the amounts that are necessary in order for the products to perform the way they do, to taste the way they do, to give us the nutrition that's important.
We're also, I think, all of us, I know this because we've talked, are strong supporters of this notion of transparency and giving the consumer, the customer, the ability to make choices. If you don't like this particular ingredient, here's an alternative to that ingredient. But making sure they have the information that allows them to make a decent choice, an informed decision, and a lot of that involves simplicity and transparency.
Yeah, great. So we're going to take some questions from our live audience. So does anybody here have a question? Great.
It's for Sam. Aside from running, what other types of workouts do you like to include in your daily active lifestyle?
It's a perfect question. Thank you. For me, I love to mix up my routine. Obviously, as a former sprinter, I do love to include running, but, I love to keep things simple, do stair running, and do functional fitness. So I don't have a lot of time during the day. Sometimes I can't get a whole hour to exercise at one time. So I love functional body weight exercises. So think push-ups, squats, doing mountain climbers, doing planks. So kind of doing a short amount of body weight exercises. That's kind of my favorite thing to do. And then throughout the day, maybe I can squeeze 15 minutes in the morning and then 15 minutes at night, and I've got in my minimum of 30. So that's kind of my personal approach. I also love a little bit of yoga to de-stress. Having 4 kids who are losing their school things and got a million pieces of homework to do, I like to include a little bit of stretching and yoga into my routine as well. But for me, I'm all about the basics. I like to keep it simple. I travel across the whole universe, so I try to not rely too much on equipment. I use my own body weight. I say my body is the best piece of equipment because it goes everywhere with me, and therefore I have no excuses. And so that's kind of my personal philosophy. Body weight exercises, minimum of 30 minutes a day, and regardless if it's 2018 or 2019, I have no excuses.
By the way, anyone, moms who are out there, I'm a pediatrician, so I've seen quite a few moms in my time. Moms who are taking care of 4 kids, they're athletes, right? They're working. They're running from one child to the other. They're running up and down the stairs. There's laundry to do. There's work to get to. The kids have to go to school and then to practice. It's a busy life. And, for moms who also have jobs, by the way, the job at home is much harder than the one typically in the office in terms of how much energy you're burning through. So I would say, just to piggyback on this, that don't underestimate how much exercise you can build into a daily life. Just walking to the car and running up the stairs, using the stairs instead of the elevator. There's lots of other ways you can build physical activity into a daily lifestyle.
And I wish people would look at food the same way, because I think sometimes when you start looking at people's diet, they're like, okay, I'm going to start on Monday, and then of course they pig out Sunday night because they're going to start on Monday. But it's like, I always say to them, all right, so you didn't eat what you were supposed to eat for lunch, then just pick it up again and get back on track at dinner time. Yeah. I mean, you're constantly learning, evolving, and figuring out what works. Being flexible with all of these things, I think, is really important for people to just continue to do this day after day.
That's right. That's right. Let's take a question from Andrea. She's on our Facebook live chat, and she wants to know, why do some people think high fat, low carb is good for you?
Aha.
David, you want to take that one?
I can take that one. Well, there started out with low fat, which Susan mentioned Nathan Pritikin. Nathan Pritikin was an interesting guy. He was a chemical engineer who was told to have a coronary artery bypass by his doctor, and one of the first kind of lay people preventive experts. And he opened up a spa, and he went around the world and he noticed that people in countries that ate a low-fat diet, like at that time China and Southeast Asia, had less heart disease. So he transferred that to his clinic here and to his spa, and that was a low-fat diet. Well, the trouble with it was it worked really well. It didn't work well for weight loss because people put beans and peanuts and stuff in. But then it didn't taste that good, because fat also keeps the heat in food. It adds to taste. It makes spices taste stronger. So people went to the other extreme. So this guy Atkins came out and he said, oh, you can have your cheeseburgers, no problem, high protein diet. And it worked for men. Women didn't like it because men could take the extra calories and still lose weight. And as Susan's pointed out to me many times, people basically didn't change their taste buds. So when they got off that high fat, low carb diet, they went right back to what they were doing before. And then there was a period of time that we had the zero carb diets. And these were just mathematical manipulations of the food label that meant nothing. And they were just wrong. And that was the extreme. And then it kind of went back now. And I think we're in an era of balanced nutrition, healthy fats, healthy carbohydrates, that's mostly fruits and vegetables, refined carbs, and the most important thing, protein. Match the protein in your diet to the protein in your body. And it's really hard to get all your protein, to your point, without supplementing protein with our protein-rich shakes. It's a very, very important tool, or with protein snack bars, to get the protein you need every day.
Yeah, and you hit on an important point. I think one of the reasons, carbs have a bad reputation because, if you ask somebody what's a carb, they'll say, oh, pasta and bread and all of these refined carbohydrates or sweets.
Right.
But, carbohydrates are critically important, and Sam knows this better than anybody. I mean, this is your body's preferred source of fuel when you're exercising. You need carbohydrates, but you need to get it from the right sources. So when I say to people, well, fruit's a carbohydrate, that's a really healthy food. There's carbohydrates in vegetables, which people forget. So if you're choosing those foods, you're choosing whole grains, you get some carbohydrate from beans, for example. There's many, many healthy sources. So the bad reputation is because of the, quote, bad carbs, right? And so clearly, if you eat a lot of these refined carbohydrates and a lot of sugar, yes, it could lead to weight gain. And conversely, if you cut a lot of that stuff out, you're going to experience weight loss, and people then conclude carbohydrates are bad.
Yeah, so the point, when you're exercising, you need simple sugars and refined carbohydrates from your sports drink. You may need 3 different types of sugar to get the right energy that you need. However, the thing about carbohydrates is they are a little bit addictive. There are the baskets of chips at the Mexican restaurant, the box of bread that people, I'll have another one of those, because when you eat a carb, a pleasure hormone in your brain called serotonin goes up. And so you want more. So as a famous potato chip commercial said, you can't eat just one. So you just keep eating and eating. And that, obviously, if you keep eating anything, you'll eventually gain weight.
I'd love to share with Andrea, I think quite often we'll see these extreme diets, you'll see these trends. Quite often, a lot of things, when you go extreme in anything, you're going to see quick short-term results. If I go on a suddenly low-calorie diet today, maybe I'm going to see wonderful results today, but a lot of the time you can't sustain it long-term. And so when I think of like a high-fat, low-carb diet, I think sometimes people haven't put the thought into what does that do long-term for my body? And that's why I'm a big fan of just overall balance. When somebody goes on what they call a no-carb diet, which is actually impossible. As Susan said, most foods have carbohydrate in them. You may see a tiny, gain today, but what's happening tomorrow? So where we think about what you're doing today is going to have effects tomorrow. So those high-fat diets, maybe it's going to be 5 to 10 years before you see the effects of what's happening on the inside of your body. And so I tell everybody, steer clear of anything that seems extreme. Anything that promises really fast results is just not true. Change takes time, and so that's kind of the way I seem to think of diets. Balance is best.
It's also true for exercise, and I think for just this whole notion of healthy, active living. Pick a plan you can live with for the rest of your life.
Right.
And you're on the right path.
Yeah,
right.
Agree. Let's take another question from our audience. Does anybody else have a question?
I do. Yeah, thanks. The trend, as you guys are doing today, is Facebook Live and social media. So I think it's fabulous that you're doing that. I think one of the big things that I hear from people is that that's where they get a lot of their information about nutrition and fitness. So I think one of the big things that, talking through Herbalife in general, or just like how you guys are doing things, how do you think that could be best presented or, kind of overcome a little bit, because it's very challenging out there, right?
Well, I know you're on Instagram, and I'm on Instagram. Sam's on Instagram. Susan's on Instagram. Laura's on Instagram. So it's very powerful. A lot of our distributors around the world are using social media. It's here to stay. When I finish my Instagram post, I share it with Facebook and Twitter. I don't Twitter anything political, but I do put information on there about nutrition, and I think that, it's going to be very individualized and personalized, is I think where it's going to be. So you have all this flood of stuff, and if somebody's a famous celebrity, they have 1 million followers right off the bat. But, I think that the media is just changed in terms of the time. So now where we used to have 3 minutes on the radio, 1 minute on television, you have 30 seconds on Instagram. So it's just gotten to where our world is today, but people who are looking for the right information from the right sources can still find it. And the nice part is it's available globally. So, the beginning of the day, you got people in America. At the end of the day, you got people in Russia. So it just goes all over the world, and it's perfect for Herbalife, which is a global company.
We just need more of you. We need more influencers, who know what they're talking about. I think that's the issue.
Well, I think hopefully all of us can do it, and we've developed through Dr. Aguinobi's leadership this global nutrition philosophy now, which is science-based, and hopefully we're pushing that out to people like at the American Society of Nutrition, people who are experts in science, and are all accepting the ideas that we've been talking about, for the last, 15 or so years about protein, and the things that we're talking about are now generally accepted in the nutrition community. So you can see we're kind of the first people with fish oils, the first people with high protein. So it's kind of really, Herbalife is at the leading edge, but not at an edge where we don't know what we're doing. It's all science-based.
Yeah, that's what I would share is, when it comes to the internet, especially, through social media, as a parent, I'm very conscious about what my kids are seeing. And, I think it's wonderful that people are sharing their personal testimony on Instagram and on Facebook and sharing their journey. I just think it's very important, again, to be that educated consumer where you're looking into, if somebody has something fabulous, maybe it's their personal diet, you have to look at where it's founded in science. I think it's wonderful to use that to inspire yourself to kind of, train more and eat well. But I'm a big believer that everything has to result back to science and experts, and we have to look for where the information's coming from so that people don't get confused, with what's real science and what's maybe somebody's personal experience. And so I think it's all about navigating the landscape and using social media as a way to be inspired.
I mean, social media and the movement to being able to speak to many more people quickly is a good thing. I don't think it's ever going to completely replace the need for personal contact between an individual and their coach, for example, or an individual and a group of other individuals who are all aspiring towards the same thing. So there are actually multiple things trending all at the same time. One is the move to go online and gain information and do research and build your plans. The other is a move to the outside to join with others in achieving certain goals, whether that be event-based exercise or other things that people are beginning to do increasingly outside. It's interesting to see that both things tend to be trending at the same time. And I think it's because people realize they need a little of both.
That's so true. One of the biggest problems in society today is isolation. People who are not meeting up with other people. Once you substitute your screen life for your real life, you've got a real problem. You've got to get out there and bond with other people, because we humans tend to bond with other people, and it's really a basic human trait, and its social support is so important.
Absolutely, absolutely. So we have a question from Rosalinda on Facebook, and she's asking, what is the best way to lower visceral fat?
Samantha, this is your expert. It's actually a combination of diet and exercise, because what you have to do, you have to change the energy flow in your body. When you accumulate fat here, this is the first place you gain fat, is in your face and right here in the abdomen, and that fat is really bad for you, the upper body fat. Lower body fat, by the way, is good for you. I'm a big Meghan Trainor fan. It's all about the base. No problem at all. That's healthy fat. But the upper body fat is bad for you. So what you have to do, you can't diet your way out of it. Your peripheral fat goes down, your visceral fat goes down at the same time when you just cut calories. But if you increase your protein, especially 30 minutes to an hour after exercise, you do the right kind of exercise that Samantha will recommend, you can lose that visceral fat.
And to your point that you gain it quickly, but you also lose it relatively quickly relative to the lower body fat.
You do, but if you have to do the exercise, because muscle takes up glucose independent of insulin, so your whole energy flow starts to go into your muscles, then your abdomen gets smaller. I've seen many people, and we see this sequentially, if you just lose weight by cutting calories without enough protein, you're still going to have that abdominal fat. It's only with high protein and exercise that you're going to be able to lose it.
But it does beg the question, because I'm sure there are people out there that aren't clear on this. What is visceral fat?
It's a bad name. You should actually call. We actually did a survey once. Nobody understands the term. It's actually abdominal fat. It's inside your abdomen. It's not on the surface.
It's not the stuff you can see on the outside?
No, it's around your intestine. So the intestine is where you got these trillions of bacteria, and the fat actually contains within it immune cells, white blood cells that are circulating around. So when you've got the wrong kind of fat, the fat grows so quickly it actually tends to die off. Some of the cells die off. They bring in immune cells, and you set up inflammation in your whole body as a result of having this excess fat. And it affects your brain, your heart, your joints, your eyes. So it really is something that nature designed for us as a portable way to carry calories when we were starving, because you could just kind of lean over instead of and walk faster instead of having the fat in your legs. But the idea is that this fat, you need to keep it to a healthy level.
So visceral fat is the fat that's on the inside of your abdomen, so you can't really see it from the outside.
Well, it tends to push out after It does tend to. Some men think this is a muscle, you know, and they, you know, but it's not. It's actually fat.
That's why, you know, when, you know, as a trainer, I always encourage people, you know, stick with your training plan, stick with your health and nutrition plan, because sometimes it takes a while for us to see the visual changes that are associated with exercise. It takes time, but if you are exercising, you are eating right, there are changes happening on your inside of your body every single day if you're making the right choices. You can't see them, but these are the changes that are most important. So I tell people, you know, you want to have lots of different ways that you can measure your success when it comes to your diet and exercise. Yes, we use the scale, which is not always completely reliable, so we can use measurements, you can use how you feel, but you need to find something that keeps you motivated, because there are changes inside happening, and getting rid of that visceral fat with exercise, you know, no amount of sit-ups alone is going to make it happen. That's not how you get rid of it. But, you know, doing a mixture of cardio with your strength resistance training and eating well, like you said, building that body composition to have more lean mass and less fat mass is going to get you to that end goal in the long term.
It's a lifetime commitment. Your body continues to evolve in response to the exercise. So you don't see the benefits until you're doing this for years, literally. And so you have to just keep at it, make it part of your routine, and don't stop. It's not something you do and then stop. Just like changing your diet is not something you do and stop. This is for life. So start things you can keep up, as Dr. Aguinobi said.
Great. So we're going to take our last question, but don't worry about it. If you have other questions, please leave it in the comment area. We promise to get back to you with the answers. So the last question of the day for our experts is, it comes from Leah. And what plant-based proteins give the highest recovery after a workout?
Aha, good question. Well, it's very interesting. So it turns out soy is the best protein in the plant world. If you go to weightlifters, they like whey protein, which is a protein from dairy, which is absorbed very rapidly. But soy is absorbed more slowly. So a combination of the two is probably the best, because the whey will get into your muscle quickly, but the soy will keep your appetite down longer. So we have in our performance protein powder a combination of soy and whey together. So you get both the initial pop and then the sustained help to your muscles. So muscles rebuild after exercise over about 120 minutes, but we recommend you get your protein in within the first 30 minutes to an hour after the end of exercise. And don't forget to hydrate properly during your exercise so the proper blood flow is there to carry the nutrients to your muscle.
And also to something that you mentioned earlier on, which is that the quality of the protein of the soy is so high, because it's got, you know, it's one of the few what we call complete proteins in the plant world that has all the essential amino acids. Those are the amino acids your body can't make.
Right, so there are 9 of those. They're like a vitamin. Your body can't make them. The other amino acids, you can shuffle them around and the body can make one into another, but not those essential amino acids, which you do get in soy. If you use other proteins, quinoa, pea protein, almond protein, nut proteins, you must combine them so that they match up and complement each other. So the ones missing in one food source will be in the other one, and you can combine them.
I've been at dinner with Dr. Heber, and he's told me, Samantha, with those beans, you need to add some corn to make sure that you've got, you know, he's been in my dinner plate before. Making that complete protein is really is what's
That's
important.
Right. And my daughter's kind of a vegetarian, so I'm always after her as well. So you combine, and Susan can talk about this better than I can, but, you know, nuts and beans and rice and corn and all the proper combinations.
Well, and it's important. Now, this is probably the last thing we'll say about this, but, you know, because we could talk about vegetarianism, because you can do it properly and you can do it improperly. And there are a lot of people who adopt a vegetarian diet. Their diet wasn't great to start with. They just cut out all the meat, and they're just eating whatever is left.
Really bad.
And now their diet is really bad because they're not getting the protein and they're not eating as well as they should. So this attention to protein, especially for vegetarians and vegans, is really, really critical, because it's hard to get enough protein in the diet without, you know, overeating on calories. And so I could see, like with your daughter, for example, you know, this is where having supplemental sources of protein, you know, protein powders and things that, you know, being able to make a shake and put a large amount of protein from plant sources is so beneficial for people on a vegetarian diet.
It all kind of goes back to this notion of balance and making sure you have a balance of protein sources, a balance of exercise, healthy, active living, you know, something you can live with for the rest of your life.
Agree. Well, I don't know about you, but I'm hungry, and I will exercise after, I promise. So thank you to our experts. Thank you to our live studio audience. And thank you to all of you for joining this live Facebook chat. And we look forward to seeing you soon. Thanks.